right. Well, hello. We are here with Foster Care and Fashion, and I am here with Brian McClendon.
So I grew up in Kansas
Okay.
and went to KU and got an engineering degree, but then I spent 30 years in California building technology. And that started out with graphic supercomputers that were used in making movies like Jurassic Park.
What?
Then turned into developing software for a company called Keyhole, which was acquired by Google in 2004. And I led the teams at Google that built Google Maps, Google
Wow.
Earth, Street View, SketchUp, Google Local Search, and many things geo-related at Google.
Okay.
Then went to Uber for 2 years. I built their Maps team. I led their self-driving car effort for a year.
Wow.
And also worked on their business platform and machine learning group. I came back home to Kansas. I'm a research professor at KU.
Oh.
And I started working on a app that we'll talk about called ksvotes.org in voter registration. And it made me realize that the Secretary of State's job is all about technology.
Right.
And not just in the chief election officer and voter registration, but also in the website that the state runs, as well as the business registration portal that everybody uses as the front door for business in the state.
Mm-hmm.
And also the biggest technology contract in the state is supposed to be overseen by the Secretary of State. So my background seems to fit well with that, and I am now running as a Democrat for Secretary of State in Kansas.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So you have been doing the technology thing for 30 years before we realized that technology was as important as it is today. And so that is, it's very impressive. Whenever you hear someone say, oh, we got bought out by Google, right, you know that you all were definitely onto something. So Keyhole, tell me what that was again.
So Keyhole was effectively Google Earth, but in a small company form. We bought satellite imagery and map data and made a program that you could download to the PC that would allow you to look at this 3D model of the Earth. And the challenge in a small company startup is that satellite imagery is expensive, and serving all of that data to all those people required network bandwidth and storage that was really expensive.
Right.
And so when Google offered to buy us, they actually solved all of those problems.
Oh, wow.
Because they already had solved network bandwidth and storage with their search infrastructure. And then they agreed to help us buy a lot of imagery so that everybody's house would be in high resolution. Because as we discovered, the first thing you do when you try Google Earth is you see your house.
Yeah.
And if it works, you love it.
Yeah, you're
and
like,
if it
that's
doesn't
so
work,
cool.
that's right. But in the early days, many people would zoom in and see 4 green pixels because we didn't have good resolution data. And so Google helped with that. We then also bought airplanes and flew a lot of imagery, and we also then drove street view cars. So we drove cars all over the world, 40 million miles, taking pictures every 30 feet. And you can then jump in. I'm sure many people have tried it to go see their old neighborhood,
Right.
Or go visit a foreign country and see what it looks like down at street level. And
I don't think I realized that you could actually do that with Google Maps now.
Google Maps has it, and Google Earth has it.
And Google Earth.
So-
I remember when Google Earth came out, that was huge. And you're right, the first thing that you do is put in your address, and then you zoom down and you see what cars are in the driveway.
You're trying to figure out when the picture was taken.
Yes, absolutely. So you are one of the folks that was behind that, very
right.
innovative. So when did that actually become mainstream?
So Google Earth was launched in 2005.
Okay.
Our company started publicly in 2001, but you probably didn't hear about it until 2003 when CNN used it on air to describe news stories.
Wow.
And in particular, when the U.S. invaded Iraq, a lot of our soldiers were going to a place that many of us didn't know what it looked like, where it was, and they would use the model of Keyhole on air to show people where stories were taking place and where important battles were taking place.
That is so innovative. So basically what your position is as Secretary of State, they are responsible for a lot of this they're responsible for a lot of technology.
That's
so
right.
what are some ideas that you have for the office, for improving the office?
Well, the biggest one around the elections is the Secretary of State should be promoting voter registration and voter participation. And Kansas is currently 28th in voter registration and 36th out of 50 states in turnout. And if you think about it, Kansas wouldn't think of it that way. We care a lot about politics, and we actually follow things and believe we're participating. But our Secretary of State hasn't done a good job of promoting voting and making it easier to do.
Wow.
Every eligible citizen should vote, and every eligible citizen should participate and learn about the candidates. And so I would build systems to more greatly enable vote at home. Mail-in ballot is actually a much better way to vote, in my opinion, because you have more time to think about who you're going to vote for.
That's true.
And so if you could spend Saturday morning, Sunday afternoon with the ballot, with the website, with some things you could read, videos you could watch on YouTube that describe the candidates, you could make an informed decision. And if we start to elect the person and not the party,
right,
I think we'll make better decisions, and Kansas will have better government when we start to pick, I think, the better people for the job, whichever party they're in.
I absolutely agree with that statement. And my thing is, yes, it's great to vote, but it's even better to be informed when you're voting, right?
That's
to
right.
know who you're voting for and why. And do they care about the things that you care about? Are they, is their vision one that is going to propel Kansas forward? So those are all very important points. Is there anything that you want for people to know about you and why they should vote for you?
I have been an engineer and a problem solver. I've looked, at all kinds of technical problems over the years and business problems, and that's how I would approach this office, is that there are a lot of things that we could do better in the state that don't require, large pontificating or going off to Washington, D.C. and or suing people in court. There are a lot of systems that we could put in place that would make Kansas more efficient and more livable by making the state government as easy to use as Google Maps.
Excellent. Well, I love that you're bringing a fresh pair of eyes to the Secretary of State's position. What you're saying, I haven't heard in concern of what the responsibilities are and what you will focus on. So thank you for running, right? Thank you. And with that, the election is November the 6th.
Yes.
And early voting starts, I think, October the
17th is when they will mail out the advance ballots,
Okay.
and then different counties will have, courthouse or voting center voting starting that day, and then a few counties will actually have, spread out polling places around for a few days before the voting, and then of course on Tuesday everybody's open.
Everybody's open, and this is a statewide election, so your name will be on everyone's ballot, correct?
That's right.
Okay.
Yes. And just to be clear, my name will be on the ballot as Brian Bam McClendon.
Tell me where BAM comes from.
So Bam is my initials.
Okay.
But it really comes from the fact that when you join a company and you need to get an email address, and if Brian at the company is taken, you end up taking something else. And so I picked BAM at one of my first companies, and there are a lot of Brians at a company,
Right.
but there was always only one BAM. And so we ended up calling each other by our email addresses. And it became...
Only in the technology industry.
Perhaps, but it became very common, and so many people know me by that,
Okay.
and it is on the ballot.
Okay.
As BAM.
Okay.
And my website, by the way, is bamforkansas.com. BAM, the number 4, and Kansas.com.
People will remember that.
and I think that's part of it. I think I believe it's easy to remember, and I'll be working to teach people that will be on the ballot.
Okay. Well, thank you, Brian Bam McClendon. You have a great day. Thank you so much.